it is certainly being contemplated by the government to declare a new state of public emergency. It is well within our constitution so to do, to make a declaration under new circumstances and with new advice. We are watching the situation very carefully to see whether or not there are any adverse changes as a result of the SOE coming to an end. What we can say, and what I've heard from all members of the force, and what I've heard from members of the community, is that the SOEs work.
Yes, sir.
They have saved lives. In this entire area, police division, we have only had 2 murders in the 2 weeks of the SOEs. This coming from sometimes in excess of 30 murders.
And those 2 were out of the SOE zone.
And those 2 murders were outside of the SOE zones. So the point of fact is that this is a tool that works. The other important, other critical point to note about the SOEs is the expansion of the force that it creates. We are able to utilize not just joint operations, which we are at a joint operation here now between the JCF and the JDF, but the JDF is able to undertake certain operations by themselves because the SOEs afford them some amount of policing powers.
It has been working.
And it has been working, and
Yes,
it gives the force a greater division of labor.
Yes, sir.
So we can tackle the problem. We were hoping that we would have this advantage to take us through the Christmas season when there will be a great demand
Yes, sir.
on the JCF for public order issues, traffic management, town order,
Yes, sir.
just ensuring that the public can go about their normal business
Right.
peacefully and safely. With the expiration of the SOEs, I'm certain the Commissioner has given me his commitment, ACP Graham has given me his commitment, DCP Blake has given me his commitment, and the CDS has given me the commitment that even without the powers, that you're going to continue,
With the relentless.
you're going to
Yes, sir.
redouble your efforts
Yes,
to
sir.
keep Jamaicans safe.
Yes.
And that's the objective. We want to keep Jamaicans safe.
Because despite the challenges that we face in these inner city community, we have good, decent, law-abiding citizens who depending on us for that reassurance.
Yes.
So we have to. It's a must that we have to be out there to give them that reassurance.
I'm disappointed to say that we have not been able in the political field to come to consensus as to the legislative agenda to support the efforts of the security forces. It is not for want of trying. Now, a few years ago, we proposed to the opposition a new piece of legislation which we call the Enhanced Security Measures Act.
Yes, sir.
And that would incorporate some of the powers that we have under the SOEs to be focused on particular persons, not for wide use in the society, to be focused on persons who we consider to be the violence producers. And we estimate that there are about 300 to 350 really critical violence producers that would be responsible for a significant number of murders in the country. And we propose then that there ought to be a limb in that legislation, an important plank of that legislation, which provides for the detention
Yes, sir.
of such persons who are creating problems. The SOEs work because you are able to preemptively
Yes, sir.
detain
Yes,
the
sir.
violence producers on whom you have strong intelligence.
Right.
And we were seeking to have that incorporated in the new ESMA. The opposition at that time when it was proposed, and Minister Malahoo Ford was in charge of putting the legislation together, they vehemently opposed any form of detention. Yesterday, I addressed a meeting and I explained that we are very close to completing the new ESMA that we are proposing, and that by January we will have a submission into cabinet. I have now heard that the leader of the opposition has changed his tune and has said that there is a form of detention that he would agree to. Now, can you imagine? We had proposed this form in 2019. It was rejected in Parliament, totally rejected in Parliament by the opposition. But now they come to say that, yes, they are proposing it. Now, aside from the plagiarism, the obvious plagiarism, which is being perpetrated by the leader of the opposition, one has to wonder, what is the motive? If they could come to this position now, why couldn't they have accepted it when we presented to them 3 years ago? We would have solved the problem then. But, you know, it's never too late for a good shower of rain. And so we are happy to hear the leader of the opposition making these proposals, which we had already put on the table, which they had previously rejected, which means that when we go to Parliament to have the act pass, there should be no quarrel. There should be no issues, and Jamaicans can breathe a sigh of relief that we are heading towards now some kind of consensus that persons who are known violence producers, persons who are known to be operating criminal organization at enterprise scale, that the government, the state should have the ability to act preemptively, as we are acting now using the state of public emergency, to separate those criminals from the community who we know are taking lives. And so I want to give you some assurance that hopefully by early next year we will have some legislative certainty about the powers that you can use to ensure that the criminal element is brought under control. So, Superintendent, I want to thank you for your work and your service and the effort that you're making. Please pass it on to the men and women who are here manning the checkpoint in the hot sun. It's a difficult job.
We join them out here from time to time to show
Very
them
good.
that you're not alone.
But Jamaica is relying on you. So, during the period of the expiration,
Yes, sir.
and whether or not the government makes a decision to continue the SOEs, I know you're going to increase your efforts to keep all Jamaicans safe
Consider it done, sir.
so that we can see 2023. God bless you and
You're
thank you.
most welcome, sir. Thanks
Very
very
good.
much for
I couldn't help but think that the Bunting Golding-led PNP opposition have emboldened criminals to the point where they know their rights more than their wrongs. That's it.
That's a profound point. I think you might want to say a little bit more.
You know, Prime Minister, we are lawmakers first as members of Parliament, and we've been trying to get a common view across the aisles on matters that our view of the Constitution tells us can be done. And we made a proposal in keeping with express provisions of the Constitution. Section 14, 1F, 1 and 2. That deals with arrest and detention in respect of persons who are suspected of committing crimes, and also the preventive detention side, where it's reasonably necessary to detain or arrest for the purpose of preventing crime. And here we are today. The view that the opposition has about the state of affairs in Jamaica is outdated. The views about policing in Jamaica is outdated. And every time I hear an allegation of human rights abuse, the allegation is actually being levied at the security forces who are executing on the ground. And it is wrong. Because the police have come a long way in their training and in discharging their duties. And for this tour, every officer who has spoken, including yourself, Superintendent Chambers, you have acquitted us well.
Thank you very
and the people are depending on the JCF and the JDF to continue to protect them. And I want to join Prime Minister in assuring you that the government that he leads will do all it can to make Jamaicans safe.
Thank you very
much.
much.
We have confidence in the police.
I just want to make a final statement. So the opposition has been using as an excuse. Firstly, they are not getting the regulations in the SOEs so that they can thoroughly analyze them and make their suggestions. I would dismiss that. The regulations that were used in these recently declared SOEs were tabled in Parliament from June last year, because they are substantially the same regulations as was tabled in the June SOEs. The Leader of the Opposition submitted to the Attorney General's department his challenges with those regulations, and those challenges that he had, many of them were incorporated in the new regulations. Whatever challenges that he may still have are subject to the policy decision of the executive. But the Leader of the Opposition is saying that if he doesn't get a set of regulations that meets his political objectives, then he will not cooperate with the government. Now, I think that that is putting the lives of Jamaicans, sacrificing the lives of Jamaicans on the altar of political expediency. I could go stronger and say that in all his presentations, he has not once said anything about saving lives. The Leader of the Opposition comes out and says that the day before the declaration of the SOEs, no murders took place, seeking to try to make the point that the SOE was not responsible for reduction in murders or days without murders. I want to be clear that the SOEs are a very effective tool, and they have an effect when they are implemented. The fact that there was no murder on the day before is even more evidence of the effect of the SOEs, because obviously the Leader of the Opposition apparently has no clue that when an SOE is declared, it doesn't start on the day it is declared.
Right.
You know, the nonsense that he's trying to sell to the nation will not stand. The government, when it is going to declare an SOE, does significant mobilization before the SOE is in place. We have units and operations all over the country looking at the various intelligence packages that they have prepared, looking for the persons that they are going to detain. And they start to feel the effect of the SOE even before the declaration is made. It is upon the declaration that detention takes place. But in terms of identifying who are the persons that will be detained, where are the areas that deployments will take place, those things happened long before. So again, the Leader of the Opposition is clutching at straws to defend an indefensible position, that they did not support a measure that will save lives, proven to save lives. And secondly, they are not supporting our security forces in giving them the force multiplier effect of having the JCF being able to operate independently, which gives the great advantage of greater use of division of labor, particularly coming into the Christmas season, when the security forces, the JCF in particular, will have a tremendous call on its resources to maintain public order and peace within communities. So I want to re-emphasize that. And the second point that I want to re-emphasize is that Minister Malahoo Fort tabled a bill in Parliament, which is the new Bail Act. And I gather it's Section 5, Minister. In Section 5 of the new Bail Act is provision for pre-charge matters. The leader of the opposition comes out trying to claim paternity for something that he opposed vehemently when it was proposed a few years back by the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Reform. Not only is it disingenuous, highly hypocritical, but it is dishonest. And it must be called out as such. And the Jamaican people must be aware of what the leader of the opposition is trying to do, to give misinformation and muddy the waters. The Jamaican people know that this government has taken every possible action to keep the Jamaican people safe. And that's what we will continue to do, and that's what we encourage. And we say thanks to our security forces who have been working very hard to keep Jamaica safe.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you
Very
very
good.
much. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll read this over.
Sir, we'll continue, sir. We'll continue.